Hi, I'm Lisa Ruble from Quilty Zest, and tonight I'm going to be showing you how to make this crossbody bag. I'm going to wait a couple minutes to get started so that we can let some more viewers get in. So in the meantime, I'm going to switch over to my other screen, and this is the cutting instructions for this project. So I'm going to hold them here for a minute, and that way when you're watching the video you can either take a screenshot of it, or if you come back to it later you can pause it and see all of the cutting instructions for tonight's project. And I'll come back to this a little bit later as well, but this seemed like a good thing to do while we were waiting for people to get logged on tonight. And for those of you who are fans of my 10-year-old Benji, who often does these videos with me, he was not happy to be left out tonight, and he is looking forward to being back for the March video. But I said that this was a project that I could probably handle without him, and we'd bring him back in March. So he'll be back if you are a fan of Benji, and if you like it better just with me, well then good thing you tuned in tonight. Set that down. Switch screens again. Okay. So I just came back from QuiltCon in Phoenix. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with QuiltCon, it is the modern quilt show. And it's been going on, I think, since 2014, and it's a great show. Lots of modern quilts in the gallery, and vendors, and classes, and all of that. And I went this year so that I could help to, well, partly for fun and to see all the quilts and to see my quilting friends, but also so I could promote my Find Your Way fabric line, which Benartex was showing at QuiltCon. So it was fun to get to introduce all the people at the show to this line and to show them what I have made with it. And you'll be seeing this again tonight because this is the fabric that I made my crossbody bag out of. And I made this specifically for the show, so I'd have just a very small, lightweight purse that I could use to hold the essentials. But while it worked really well for the show, it will be great to use just, especially in the summer, but on a daily basis, because you can put your keys in it. It's big enough for your phone, some mints, chapstick, which is something I like to have with me. And then there's even a little Velcro pocket for your keys. I'm sorry, for your like cash or credit card. Okay, so one of the things that, just to kill a little more time for some people to get on, one of the things that I really enjoyed seeing at QuiltCon, besides meeting people in person that I know from Instagram or walking through the quilt gallery, was seeing all of the quilted clothing that people had on. There were full body outfits. There were a lot of rompers that were decorated, embellished with fabric, lots of skirts, coats, jackets, all kinds of fun things that people were wearing that had their favorite either fabric on it or block or that. So this is my rainbow shirt, which you may have seen before, and I did a tutorial for this on the ThermoWeb blog, so you can find it there, and it is using the colors from my Find Your Way fabric. So I had the short sleeve version of this on, but I thought I'd show you real quick the other two of the other pieces of clothing that I wore at the show. I am not a seamstress, but one of my friends, Carolyn Zinn, made this lovely top for me. It's a grain line pattern, and it is using one of my Find Your Way fabrics, and then she even put the name of the fabric, the selvage, in as a tag. So I enjoyed wearing this one day. And then, while I said I'm not a seamstress, and I'm not, I found a pattern and I made myself a twirly skirt, also out of my fabric, and it was a very easy pattern just with elastic at the top and then using 2 different fabrics. So I had a lot of fun wearing this and also spinning in circles wearing it. So that was those were some of the clothing pieces that I wore at the show, and there was lots more to see. And if you go on Instagram, you can actually see on the Modern Quilt Guild's Instagram page, there's a great little video that shows a lot of the clothing that was at the show. People are modeling it. I didn't get into it, but it was fun to see. Okay, so let's start talking about how to make this crossbody bag. And if you are watching tonight, please leave a note in the comments so that we know who's watching and we can say hello to you. This bag is made, like I said, using my Find Your Way fabric, and I'm going to give you a little tour of it. So in the front, I did this pieced section, and then there's a main pocket. This is where I kept my cell phone, which I can't put it in right now because I'm actually using it for my second camera. And then on the back side, there's another pocket that has a little pleat in the bottom so that it stretches out a little bit. And then if you look inside there, you can see, hopefully, that I've got a pocket made out of the stripe in here, and it's got a little Velcro on it, and that is the little secure pocket for tucking in some money, your driver's license, a credit card, because the Velcro can hold it tight. So there's a couple layers to both the front and the back, and then the strap goes all the way around the bag and then makes the over-the-shoulder strap as well, similar to a binding. So I'm going to talk about how to do that as well. So I'm going to switch cameras real quickly and hold this up again for people who weren't on at the beginning. This is the cutting information, and I'm not going to hold it up long enough that you can write it all down tonight, but you can come back to the video and either take a screenshot or just pause the video and get all the information you need. But these are the different cut pieces that we'll be using to make the bag tonight. Because there's a fair amount of them, I didn't want to just say them out loud, so I have them all typed up. Okay? So we're going to start out by adding in some of the fusible interfacing that we use to the various components before we assemble it. And I used both the Craft Extra Firm, I always forget the order of those words, Craft Extra Firm fusible interfacing and the medium weight interfacing. I use them for 2 different parts in the bag, and I will show you how that works. And because I wanted all the parts of the bag, where did I put it? Here it is. All the parts of the bag to have finished edges. You'll see all the fabric pieces that we're cutting tonight are basically folded in half, so they are their own front and back. So we're going to start out with the main piece. And this is my main piece that you see, and it's kind of the, I don't know, the backing, the main fabric in the middle that goes between the 2 sides. And so I've got a 6-inch by 18-inch piece, and then I cut a 6-inch by 9-inch piece of the Craft Extra Firm. This is the nice and sturdy fusible interfacing. And then I'm going to fold my fabric over the top so it will fuse down and attach to the fabric on one side, and then we'll do a nice little top stitch along the top edge, and that will help to secure it as well. So, and by using that longer piece and folding it in half, I don't have to do any sewing of pieces together, and I get to use this great focal print on both the front and the back of my bag. Okay, so now that I've got it fused on, what I'm going to do is just top stitch along this folded edge. And for this whole project, I chose a dark teal thread that worked with all of the fabrics so that I didn't have to swap back and forth between thread colors. So I will be right back. If you are using a contrasting thread like I am, you want to make sure that you stitch very straight because you'll be able to see the thread. Okay. So that secures everything in place and just gives it a nice finished look right there. And you can see I've got little thread ends, but they will be tucked in. So I'm going to set that aside and we're going to move on to the next piece, which is that little, actually we'll do that one first. And I realized that I did not pull out my Velcro for this project. So I'm just going to cut a quick piece of the Velcro because you can attach it in such a way that you won't see it later. So what I'm going to do, I've got a piece of this traverse stripe that is 10 by 6. And I'm going to, this one I'm going to press in half before I put the fusible in. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one side of the Velcro and I'm going to stitch it up near the top, centered from left to right. But when I stitch it, I'm only going to stitch through the one layer of the fabric. So that's why I want that folded edge so I know where the top is. So I'm just going to stitch all the way around that piece of Velcro. And I'm wondering if maybe the comments are misbehaving tonight, because normally this is a very lively group with lots of conversation. So even if the comments aren't working, I'm hoping that the video is working so that you are seeing this live feed. Okay, so I've got my Velcro stitched on, and now I'm going to take, this is the medium weight fusible interfacing, and I use that because if I use the craft for everything, it will be pretty stiff and bulky. So by just putting this light layer of the medium weight in, I'm giving it a little body without having it overpower things. So I'm going to fuse this in place as well, just like I did with the craft interfacing. Okay. And then same thing, I'm going to stitch a top stitch along the edge just for a finished look. Okay, so I've got that piece done, and then what I'm going to do is pull my, let's call this the main piece of the purse. I'm going to pull this main piece of the purse back out, and I'm going to lay my Velcro pocket on top so that the raw edges match down here. And in terms of Velcro, this is, I think it's 3/4 inch, and then I cut about 1.5 inches, a piece about 1.5 inches long. But so I've got this, and one more thing to show you. So when I fused the craft fuse on, it fuses to one side and the other side stays loose. So the side that is loose, I'm going to leave up because, again, I'm going to stitch the Velcro to that and not have it go through all of the layers. So I'm going to lay this Velcro pocket on top, make sure all the raw edges match, and then I'm going to set down the other half of the Velcro so that they line up. And I you can either pin it, or you can put a little mark, or you can just kind of wing it. What I'm going to do is just take a little pencil line and mark along the edges. And then I'm going to lift it up so I only have the fabric, put the Velcro in place, and just like on the other side, stitch around it in a box. And I used black Velcro because it's what I had on hand. You can try to, mostly you see Velcro in white and black, sometimes another neutral. You can try to match it to your project, or just decide that since you won't see it, since this pocket is tucked inside, that it doesn't really matter which color it is. Okay. So now I've got my Velcro stitched on, so I'm going to set those two pieces aside for later. And the next piece that we're going to work on is this pieced front right here. So I had this vision when I was making this project that I wanted to do stripes so that I could see multiple of this maize fabric, which is one of my favorites from the line. But I also wanted to do it on a diagonal because I thought it would be an interesting look. So I ended up using 2.5-inch wide strips and did 4 of them together. And this is the piece that I have. And you'll notice that it looks much longer and wider than this. And that's because when we cut it on the diagonal, it will take up a different amount of, it will take up much, well, more of this, I guess. And so what we want to cut out of that is a 6-inch square. And I am going to use my 6-inch ruler to do so. And what I'm going to do, I've got a 45-degree line on the ruler, and I want it to line up with that. So I am going to position it so that that is parallel with my pieced lines. And then I'm going to cut a piece that is 6 by 6. And you'll see I do end up having a fair amount of waste from this, but again, I wanted that diagonal look. And so that's how to create it. Okay, and so that, if you notice, when you look at my purse, my bag, I've got this little edge, I guess, of the teal right there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew, so I've got this piece that is, let's see, what's the measurement on this? This is 9 by 6. And I'm going to lay my 6 by 6 inch square at the top, and I'm going to stitch along that top edge. Okay, so now they are stitched together. And the first thing I'm going to do is press this seam, and I'm going to press it towards the plain piece. And then I'm going to fold this in half. And by doing that, you can see I create that little, I don't know if you want to call it a cuff, sort of at the top. And so I'm going to press, I'm matching the seams at the bottom. You know, I've got a little, hang on, I didn't press this quite enough. Okay. Okay, so then when I fold it over and match the edges at the bottom, it creates that lip or that cuff at the top. So I'm going to press to create that seam. And then I've got one more piece of the craft fuse cut that will fit inside that. So I'm going to nudge it up against that top edge where I've made that fold and secure it in there, and then press again to fuse that in place. And that gives us this nice little decorative cuff at the top and then the diagonal piecing down below. Now for this section down below, you can use anything you want that is 6 inches square. So you could just use one piece of fabric if you liked one, or you could piece something different than what I did, you know, squares, triangles, anything you like, as long as it is 6 inches. So now that I've got that fused down, I am going to stitch on this, and I'm actually going to stitch in 2 places. I'm going to top stitch along the top like I have been through all the layers, and then just off of that cuff edge, because it'll just give it a nice finished look and hold everything together. The great thing about this bag is once we have all the components created, and we are just about there, we're practically done making it, because you assemble it and then add that strap around as both the binding and the finished strap, and then your bag is complete. So it really goes together very quickly. Okay, so here is my finished piece right here. So the last piece that we need to assemble is this pleated pocket on the back. And so same thing, I've got a piece that I'm going to fold in half, and this piece is 7 by 13. And you'll notice everything else that we cut tonight has been in measurements of 6, because that's how wide our bag is. And this piece is 7 because we're going to put that pleat in it to make it a little bit bigger of a pocket. So I'm going to slide a piece of the medium weight interfacing inside and fuse that. And then one more time, go over to my sewing machine. You can see why I chose to use the same thread for all of my stitching, because I'm spending a fair amount of time top stitching. And if I wasn't doing this for a video, I would prepare all of these and then go top stitch them all at once. But because I'm doing this on camera, I want to go back and forth so you can see each step. Okay, so let's take a look at how we make this pleat. So I'm going to move over to my cutting board half of my surface. You can see I'm at 7 inches and I want to get down to 6. So what I'm going to do, you can just wing it and make a pleat, but what I had luck with is I folded it in half to mark that center point. And then I folded it about another ½ inch, and I'm just pressing it to leave a little mark. And then I tucked both of those ends, those folded marks in, like that. And then before I press it and pin it, I just want to check on, oh, a little much. Okay. So then before you pin it or stitch across it or press it, make sure that you are at 6 inches. So I'm going to hold this here and press. But basically you just want to put a couple folds in the bottom. You can do 1 fold or 2 like I did to create a bottom that is 6 inches across. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go stitch just across those pleats, but I'm going to do it about 1/8 inch in from the end of the fabric so that it will be hidden in my binding. Okay, so there you can see I've made that pleat, which will make this pocket bow out a little bit. So now I'm going to assemble my bag, and I go back and forth between thinking that binding clips or pins are the best way to put it together. So you can use whichever works best for you. I'm going to go with binding tonight. Pins can be a little hard because you're going through so many different layers of fabric. So I've got my Velcro pocket Velcroed in place, so I know that that is where it needs to be. And then the pleated pocket is what goes on top of that. So I am going to position that, and the top will still be 7 inches even though the bottom is 6. So what you want to do first is align those raw edges at the bottom and pin them in place, and then go up to the top and do the same there. And so by matching the raw edges at the top, you can see my bag has a little gap there, and that's what makes this larger pocket, and then you can see the Velcro pocket inside. So then we're going to flip it over, and we're going to put the pieced pocket on in the same way. So you're going to line up the bottom raw edges with the bag background, and you can use the same, I kind of add in another binding clip or two, but to get those edges lined up like that. Okay, and then the next step is going to be to stitch all the way around through all those layers to hold them together. And you want to try to stitch about 1/8 inch away from your raw edges, because again, this will hide under your binding. And I do have a little bit of a wider binding piece, so if you are more like 1/4 inch, you will not see the stitched edges, but try to stay nearer the edge, but just stitch just around to hold all of those pieces in place. And if you are stitching with this on the front, remember on the back, this piece goes a little bit higher, so just make sure you start and finish far enough that you hold all of those edges in place. And then remove your binding clips as you sew. So after this is stitched on, all we need to do is add the binding / strap, and the bag will be complete and ready to use. So one of the things I kept in this bag at the show was stickers, because at QuiltCon a lot of people, including myself, handed out stickers at the show, just of, you know, either about their brand or just stickers that they liked. It was a big thing at the show. Okay, just about done. So at this point, oops, dropped the binding clip. At this point, your bag is secure, but the edges are not pretty. So we are going to move on to the binding strip. And the binding strip is made out of 2 3-inch by width of fabric strips. And so I stitched them together. And when I did that, I pressed the seam open. And then I already did a bunch of the pressing because it's pretty boring to watch someone just press fabric. But what you want to do is press the strip in half, and then after you've done that, you're going to press the, I've got it backwards here, you're going to press each long edge into that center fold. And I tried a couple different ways to do this. And honestly, for me, the best and easiest way to do it was to just do one side at a time and then come back and do the other side. I tried to do them both at once, and my fold was not very consistent, and I wasn't happy with how it turned out. And then when you finish that, you're going to go back and you're going to refold and repress on that original center line. And what this essentially makes is a double fold binding tape like you can buy at the quilt store. But what makes this fun is A, it's a little wider so it's easier to work with, and B, it's made out of the fabric of your choice. In my case, the stripe from Find Your Way, rather than just solid fabric. So now I've got my whole binding strip done. And so what we're going to do is we're going to tuck the edges of the bag in between that main fold. And what you want to do, you don't have to start exactly in the middle, but you want to start, you're going to finish the edges up at the top where it will be a shoulder strap. So you don't want that fold necessarily at the center of your bag. So I'm going to start out, actually I think it's easier to start on one side. And so I'm going to put that raw edge against that center fold and encase it in my binding. And again, this is a great place for binding clips. And you want to really make sure that you have the edge of your bag pushed into that fold. And then start the clips. So this is probably the trickiest part. We're going to miter the corners just like you would on a quilt binding. And so it's tricky because you need to do it on both sides at the same time. Or not exactly the same time. You do one and then the other, but you want to fold it at a 45-degree angle so that it comes up, and then do the same on the back. And it's one of those things that's hard to describe, and you just kind of have to play with it until you get it. But you should get that mitered edge on both sides and then pin it. And then we're going to keep going around. Make sure that the bag is pushed all the way into the fold, and add more binding strips. And then do the same corner. You kind of want to fold the fabric back on itself at a 45-degree angle. You can see how I did that, and that creates that mitered corner just like you would do on a quilt. And then work your way up the side of the bag. Okay. And then when you get, and make sure you can see my fabric actually came unfolded back here. So double check as you're going to make sure that it stays folded. There we go. And then once you get above that top edge of your bag, as you stitch, you're just going to keep stitching along that folded edge, and that will secure it together to make your strap. Now the last thing you need to do is decide how long you want your strap to be. So what I recommend you do is actually put the bag on yourself, figure out where you want it to hit on your hip, and then cut the strip to that length. And then what I did is just folded one end in like this, tuck the other end in on top of it, and just continued stitching. So you're going to stitch all the way around near the folded edge, I guess further towards the center of your bag, so that it will hold those strips in place. I went about a 1/4 inch in to make sure I was hitting it on both sides. And once you do that, your bag is done. All right, I'm gonna go back to my main screen. Again, hopefully this video worked. I missed having, chatting with all of you in the comments tonight, but hopefully you were able to see it, and when we come again in March, the comments will be working. So I'm just going to show you, I'm going to do a quick wardrobe change because I wanted to make sure, I wanted to wear this because I was talking about clothing at the show, but I wanted to show you, this was my most recent ThermoWeb blog post. Actually this is on my blog on quiltyzest.com, And it is the design I made for my project. Where did my pillow go? Oh, well, I did this plant love design on a pillow for my ThermoWeb project back in February. I did it with both fabric applique as well as with these cool foils. And then I liked how the foil worked so much, I decided to try it on a t-shirt. So my t-shirt says plant love as well in a very cool rainbow foil. So you can find the pillow. You know what? It's hiding under my skirt. Here's the pillow. You can find the tutorial for this pillow on the ThermoWeb blog. You can see I used the foils and fabric. I did this for Valentine's Day, but whether you skip the heart or just do the heart and say, hey, some flowers are hearts, it can work all year long. And then I liked the plant love idea so much, I did both the flowers and the words on a t-shirt, just figuring that planting and sharing a little love was something that we could all use. So you can find that on the ThermoWeb blog as well. And then the one last thing I wanted to share tonight, you can see behind me, this is one of my Find Your Way quilts using my fabric line called Trail Map. And through tomorrow, Friday the 28th, I do have a sale on my Find Your Way patterns on my website. They're 20% off using the code QuiltCon20, the number 20. And you can go to quiltyzest.com and then look to where it says shop and see those patterns if you're interested in taking advantage of that sale. But beyond that, I hope you enjoyed my little crossbody bag tutorial tonight. And you can always find me on Instagram on Quilty Zest, and I also have a Quilty Zest Facebook page, or look on my website, which is quiltyzest.com, and I've got a blog there as well. And I look forward to seeing you in March. Have a great night.